Women Innovators. Interviews with women with big messages and big missions, sharing their stories to inspire you to live your passion and step up to make the world a better place. Here's your host, Tami Patzer.
Hi, this is Tami Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Becky Norwood. Becky is an international bestselling author, speaker, and coach. She also assists her clients to publish their books. Her own book, The Woman I Love, Surviving, Healing, and Thriving After a Childhood of Sexual, Emotional, and Physical Abuse, has laid the groundwork for her coaching programs and her upcoming book interview series, the first of which will publish in late January. We choose to thrive. Our voices rise in unison to spread a message of inspiration and hope for abuse survivors. She's also working with a group of women to bring the Million Women Message Tour to the U.S. and Canada in late fall of 2017. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you. I am so delighted to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here because I've known you a few years and most of it has been in an online environment, but I have watched you really grow, struggle to find your way in the sea of internet marketing and authority. So tell me more about who you help and how you got here today. And I'm going to let you tell your story, so don't expect me to say too many things other than when I'm curious.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Well, as you said, we met several years ago, and we met through learning how to do internet marketing and helping our clients, which are local businesses, to understand all the nuances of getting their businesses online. But there was the economy, there was numerous things and constant changes within the internet industry that kind of made it to where I always felt like I just didn't quite connect the way I needed to, and it wasn't going anywhere. And then on a personal level, for me, it was the not feeling like I was truly always as happy as I felt like I should be. There was always that toe of a depression that hung like a cloud, and I had to give a lot of thought to that. And I, at one of these events, we were being taught about book publishing, and I at that event named my book The Woman I Love. But it took me 5 years to get there. And the reason it did is because it was such a deeply personal story. And finally, I was at another event, and a very, very dear friend of mine was also at this event. And we took the last day. The event was over, but we took one full day, and we just walked along the coast of California there at La Jolla. And we walked and we talked and we talked and we talked. And she asked me, "Why haven't you told your story?" And finally I said, okay, I will. And so it took me, I took about 3 months, and that's all I did is I wrote and I wrote. I cried a lot. I did all these things. But what has happened from that, I published on my 60th birthday last August. It became an international bestseller. And what has come from that the writing of my story actually helped me to write a new story for myself. It helped me to understand my worth and the value that I have and what I could offer this world. And as I've stepped into that, the writing of my book has created many, many people that have reached out to me and said, thank you for having the courage to write that. But it helped me to just transform everything. And from that, I've got coaching programs, and I've met many, many other men and women who have gone through the same experience. And the sad part about it is I discovered for the first time in my life what a horrible epidemic abuse is, sexual abuse for children, but it goes on to to domestic violence. It goes on to all these other things, rape, and the whole works. And so we don't even know the statistics, but the statistics are 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys have experienced this. And what that creates as a whole for people is a broken world. Because so many of us that have gone through this, we have experiences in life that we don't understand. Our heart is good, but we don't know how to rise above it. And so that's what I'm working is that my coaching program is called The Power of Story, the Healing Power of Story. And what I do is work with individuals to help them to realize what they really do want for life and help them to learn to speak up, to stand up, to claim their inner power, and to know their own truth. And so this has been an amazing process. At the end of this month, I have a book that's being published. It's part of a series. It's called We Choose to Thrive. And every chapter is another woman telling their story. They're from all walks of life. They're from every ethnic background. It is so touching and so amazing. And from that, we've gained quite a bit of strength, and we're doing some other amazing things. We have our, as you mentioned in my bio, we have our Million Women Message Project that we're putting together, where we will actually be on the road and we will be traveling from city to city, speaking to women about the ability to heal and to claim their power. And it's a message for men too, but we're calling it the $1 Million Message Tour.
Wow. So by telling your story, you said that 5 years ago you came up with the title, The
I did.
Woman I Love, but you sat on it for 5 years until what were you afraid would happen if you told your story?
We live in such shame and we blame ourselves. We feel all alone. I had no idea that other people had gone through this because I kept my mouth shut. You don't speak about this. There's fear, there's shame, there's all of these things that we're faced with. And the other part was the pain of actually sitting down and writing it, because it brought so much that we try to erase, that we just try and block out. For many of us, we can't remember the full details until we do start writing, but for me, the depression that I had constantly battled for so many years, even though I could put on a good face, it was always that heavy cloud that laid on like a blanket over my head. Writing it changed it. And though I cried through it, it changed it enough to where I don't have that problem now. And if I feel it coming on, maybe because of some trigger point, I know what to do to take care of it and to put it aside. And that's mostly doing something to change it, whether I start singing or do something funny, anything that can just change the whole flow of it. But the writing of it did indeed create a new story for me. And it has transformed my life. And I've been starting to see that with my own clients now.
So when you work with women and maybe men too, with your new author program and your coaching program, are you actually helping them tell their story, write their story? Is that what your coaching program is all about?
It involves writing, and we start with small exercises because sometimes we're a little resistant to actually writing it. But we start with journaling. We start down with just writing what little things we remember. I always start, though, with my courses with mindset. And because I feel like the mindset for all of us is such an important factor. I ask questions like, what do you want more of in your life? What's happening in your life that's not really serving you? Really getting down deep, what would make you feel more alive and more vibrant? And really start, what are you grateful for? And what I ask questions like, what did your experience, what good qualities has come to you as a result of your experience? Because so many of us can't even think of anything good about ourselves as a result of these experiences. And so that's where it all starts. So it's kind of a real weaving, and we use a lot of different writing exercises. My courses are not short term because it's something that it takes time to really put these stories together. And not everybody's going to publish. There's a lot of times there's families still living and it's not safe. But the writing of the story, whether they share it with the world or not, still writes a new story. And so I have some that are sitting on their story that are waiting for the time that is right to publish their story. Others probably will never write their story, and some have written their stories and have published. It's amazing. It is really amazing. But I find that there's more and more women starting to realize that it's time to speak up, that it's time to give it a voice because of the impact it's had on our world. And we want to be a part of the change and create the awareness. And the biggest awareness is that we can heal. We can get better from this.
So if you were talking about the biggest reason for people to even explore writing their own story, what makes it so important that you share your story with other people beyond yourself, or is that important?
For many of us, it is important, and it's mostly because we want to send a message that we can get better, we can heal. And every person's different for that. I have found it for me to tell the world was like just exposing it and letting it free. It's like it just set it free. And that was my purpose. I'm to the point where in life where, at this point, I don't have most of those family members still living. My mom is alive. She read the book, hated it. And yet it has made an impact on her life. And she's realizing some of the role that she played because she didn't stand up. And so for my own family, it's brought some healing. And for the most part, the transformation that it brought for myself is what I see happening for people that finally get that voice and find their voice. If they don't tell the whole world, at least to tell it to themselves and to maybe even their families.
I think you're absolutely right, because it starts with you. And so often we're so busy taking care of other people. And like you said, you often forget things on purpose. That's our protection. And then, of course, I know even in my own business, sometimes I know that if I write things down, it'll be a lot better. But for whatever reason, I don't. Mm-hmm. And I don't. It's some type of a protective thing, because we know that the act of writing is revealing. And like you said, you spent a lot of time crying and I guess processing,
right,
a childhood experience. And then, like you said, your mother, she didn't like the book, but she learned from it because she was part of the experience in some way. That I find that's very interesting about, like what you said about how some people, maybe they don't share it with other people or with the world because they have family members that they're obviously protecting. So in your process, the coaching that you do now, how long do people typically work with you?
Typically, majority of them, of course, I have only been having this it's an 18-month program. And because I just started it a few months ago, we're just in the process. So I haven't even had the program for a full 18 months, but it is an 18-month process, simply because this is something that just doesn't happen overnight. It's a processing. And there's ups and downs along the way. And that the whole thing about it is it's the honoring of where we've come from and the gaining of the new that that gaining of that strength. My whole thing is, let's make the best of your rest of your years become the best of your years. And it doesn't matter the age. I have young girls, one young girl in particular who is in my We Choose to Thrive book. She's just turned 30. It was her grandfather that had molested her for many, many years. She took him to court, and there was many other women that he had abused. Hers was the only one that stood because of the statute of limitations. He got 3 years and he served 18 months. But what it did for her, and because what it did for her to stand for herself has made all the difference in the world. So, when you understand what the statistics are and understand what the long range effects are on the person, we owe it to ourselves to heal from it, but we also owe it to our families, to our communities, and to the world, because we need to be happy. We need to be alive and vibrant, because it affects every aspect of our life. It affects our business. It affects our families, because there's always those things where we have trigger points. And if we're not able to get over those things, often it affects how we even treat our family or how we react to things in business and in life. So it's kind of a whole blend of things. So it isn't the course that I put together, just as it took me years to actually gain the courage to write my story. I knew I wanted to, and every time I said that would sit down to write, it was like, I can't write this. It's just too hard. But once I did, it transformed.
So that transformation that people can have, obviously, like you said, it's a transformation of your soul.
It is.
Because you've had a damaging event in your life. So if you were to suggest to somebody, maybe they're not ready for, the one-to-one coaching program or group coaching, what type of tips would you suggest to people just to get started if they're trying to figure out what their story is?
I would say journal. Journaling is a really good way to start. And if you have to just start with what something smelled like, what the weather was like, what you were wearing. So journaling is very, very positive. There are amazing books out there that have been written on these subjects, not just mine. I mean, there are people. I found a book that was called The Courage to Heal. It was written over 20 years ago. It's phenomenal. I didn't know a book like that existed. So biggest thing is start loving yourself and do what it takes. If nothing else, start writing what kind of life you would like to have. Start writing and journaling about your dreams and aspirations for the life that you would like to have, or how you're reacting to different things and why you think you react that way. Start small. For some, writing is not going to work. For some, take an art class, take a dance class, something that lets you get that expression out. So there's a lot of different healing modalities. Writing isn't the only one. I have interviewed women that are in my book that they use art as their medium. It's amazing. Others that are using dance. So, find what works for you. Find what kind of self-expression that will do to start setting yourself free.
Oh, I think that's really interesting, because as you were talking, I was thinking art, writing, speaking, poetry, even
yeah.
Animals. Some people work, maybe they go and they volunteer at a shelter and they help animals. There's a lot of ways to express you and
yes.
creative. And of course, writing is always useful just because it's such a personal expression. But dancing or art, I can really see that. I always like to, when I paint, I like to paint butterflies.
Yeah.
because, think they're colorful and whimsical and things like that. And I think that's one reason why the coloring book craze is so
Yes.
popular.
One of my dearest friends, she's in Canada, and she does a body cast of a woman from her neck down to her hips. And I'm not sure the process of how she does it, but she's gotten awards all over Canada for this. And they're her clients. And then they take this body cast and they color it. They put designs on it, and she's created coloring books of her body casts. It's way cool. But they name their body cast and they tell a story with it. It is so amazing. I have another young girl that's here local that speaks on domestic violence and abuse all over the city, and her healing has been animals. She started working for the shelters, and those animals are what taught her unconditional love, and loving herself. So there's no one right way. It's what we need to do to discover what works for us. And I'm not the end all be all, but I help to get that ball rolling, help people to discover what's going to work.
Well, I think that anytime you take that, I guess, a step forward with courage, because again, like you said, you don't want to think about any traumatic things that happen to you. And it could be, physical abuse, emotional abuse, incest. It could even be other accidents. I mean, there's a lot of different traumas that we experience in our lives. Would you say that, what do you think is the biggest thing holding people back from moving forward in this healing process? I mean, for example, you said you just turned 60 years old. So that means that you've lived with this your entire adult life until just recently. What was stopping you from processing or healing?
The feeling that you're all alone, shame. I have a graphic I use in some of my blog articles and social media. It's a picture of a girl in sunglasses, and on one lens it says the shame that they don't know, the shame that they cannot see. So shame is huge. Fear of what other people will think of them, because most of us can manage to put up a good exterior around us. Doesn't mean we're really, maybe nobody knows what we suffer with behind closed doors. So fear, shame, there's so many factors, but most of the time it's those kind of things. Not knowing that there's any help out there, because we kind of put blinders on, and we do so much. We put such a wall to protect ourselves, and yet a lot of times, since I've come this far, and I watch people a lot. I've always watched people a lot and observed how they do. Now when I see people that are going through, they're doing things that you just wonder, why are they doing that? People standing on the street corner peddling, or on the street corner asking for money. You ask yourself, why are they doing this? Where does this come from? There's a brokenness many times that comes from something very deep-seated that happened to them. And, we can rise above it. We can blossom and live amazing lives, but we have to be willing to do the work that takes, and it starts with loving ourselves.
So love yourself, and then you can take the step forward. So what would you suggest, again, and I want to take it back to the publishing aspects of it, because that's the venue that you've created. What steps should someone take to start on that journey to publish their story, either by themselves or obviously they could work with you with your book series. You want to talk a little bit more about the process of how that might look?
Yes. I'm a firm believer that, as you walk through this process, that if you really want to make it to be something that is going to, if you do want to put it out to the world, and you do want to stand on your story and not in your story, then as you start writing, seek support, because there are times it's going to be very emotional. But in the process, you can break it up with starting little things like maybe a Facebook page just for that. Because for when it comes time for publishing, you're going to need to be able to use, if you're wanting this message to get out to the world, you're going to need to have the framework set up. So oftentimes I'll start them with starting their own little Facebook group with maybe just putting out positive information or positive quotes or stuff, things like that. But then they build it with the name of their book. So it's their Facebook book group for their book. It's starting to establish themselves by maybe even learning how to use video to start telling their story. Because one of the things that we find is as they start to tell their story, they start gaining more courage. They realize the impact their messages can have. And so what I work with them to, it's a little bit further along the line in the process of my actual coaching, but looking for speaking engagements to start establishing themselves as somebody that knows what they're talking about. Find their truth, find what works for them, and find how to command their inner power in a way that they can, with courage, stand and tell their story. Because their story goes to the whole world. It's available to the whole world. Whether it gets, and the hearts that need it, the people that need to hear that story, by standing in their truth and not being fearful of that truth, other hearts are reached. And so I start them kind of, I guess you would say, more about learning a little bit about the marketing aspect of the whole book publishing process, because any of us can publish a book and it can be totally never seen by anybody.
Yes,
because because of the fact that there's just so many people that are now publishing. Self-publishing has become quite the thing. And unless we understand some of the things that we can do to get our message out to the world, you don't want to go through all of this. If you've made this decision to publish to the world, you want it to get found by the world. And so that's some of as the last few months of what they're doing, I start teaching them those aspects of it too.
So your coaching program will actually take someone from idea, or I'm going to tell my story, all the way through the marketing aspects of what I call the now what. After you've written your book and published it, the now what is really the important part, because that's getting it out there so people actually will see it, and leveraging that so that your story gets told and reaches the right people. You talked about the million message, and I want to ask you to talk a little bit more about that, the Million Women Message Tour. What exactly, how will that work?
We're still in the planning stages of it, but I have met so many women that have even gone before me that have spoken up and told their stories. But I also have met women, one in particular who just lost her daughter to drug overdose. She has an amazing story, and it's been a long thing that she's gone through. The name of her book is Still Crying After All the Still Standing After All the Tears. And so she'll be one of the people that'll be one of the speakers on this tour. So we will be going from city to city and establishing. We haven't got all the details worked out. We're working on sponsorships and all of that. But we will have a group of women with varied messages. It will not all be on abuse, sexual abuse, or abuse, period. It will include, there's some women just because for whatever reasons that have emotional things that they're just constantly dealing with, where maybe it's depression, maybe it's, other health issues. A lot of health issues is all kind of stems from mindset. Mm-hmm. And so we're covering kind of a broad spectrum to show women, and I'm sure many men will hear the same message, that there are ways to heal, no matter what. Maybe they say, well, I was never abused, but maybe they're having issues. So let's get to the root of those and get down to it. And so we're having people that are from a variety of backgrounds, covering a variety of subjects, but it's on living the best life we can live.
Oh, I like that. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. So where, I just want to have you wrap everything up. Where can we find out more about you and repeat your upcoming book projects that you're working on? And where can we find out more about you?
Okay. My website is thewomanilove.com. And the Facebook page is The Woman I Love 1. Yeah, it's on Facebook. It's the number 1 because there was a singer that had The Woman I Love. So Facebook, I'm on all the social media. Facebook is I'm on more than anything because I seem to be able to reach many more people that way. And my website, my email is Becky at The Woman I Love if you want to just ask some questions. So that's Becky at thewomanilove.com. The name of the book that's coming out this month is called We Choose to Thrive, Our Voices Rising in Unison to share a message of inspiration and hope for abuse survivors. So pretty cool.
How many authors are represented in that book?
In this one, there's 25.
25.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really phenomenal. Well, again, everyone, Becky Norwood, International Bestselling Author, Speaker, and Coach. And she has written the book called The Woman I Love, Surviving, Healing, and Thriving After a Childhood of Sexual, Emotional, and Physical Abuse. And of course, we just talked about her coaching programs and some of her upcoming projects. Becky, thank you so much. I've learned so much, and I'm really happy to know that you decided to share your story. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Yeah. I've enjoyed reconnecting with you.
This is Tami Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Women Innovators with Tami Patzer. To learn more, please go to womeninnovatorsradio.com. And please do subscribe and share to spread the big messages and big missions to change the world.